AOC doesn't want to talk about crime, though. She wants to talk about cannabis. But her constituents weren't there to talk about marijuana, and they got a little rambunctious. And so, as Jill Biden says, AOC went full taco.
Yeah, what he did there? You get the thing that he's doing there? It's a taco, because he thinks of people's culture as being about food, and he compares them to food, because he thinks that that's cool. Now, on the substance, I'm sure that her and her constituents would have loved to have talked about any number of issues. The issue, Jesse, was that they could not talk about literally any issue, because while you attempt to squirrel away from what they were doing by saying they got rambunctious, they were banging on drums and yelling so that nothing could be discussed. I don't mean nothing that she specifically wanted to talk about, I mean literally nothing. Even they, assuming that they had any substantive critique of her, nothing was being expressed. They weren't asking questions, they weren't making a comment and then seeing how she responds. The point was to make it impossible for any meeting to happen, to grind government to a screeching halt. So what is she supposed to do at that point? Is she supposed to just stare at it for an hour straight and then eventually pack up her things and go home? Like, I get that we don't get to compare hypothetically how a conservative would respond to this, because barely any conservatives actually hold town halls or in any way responsive to their constituents. AOC, like, honestly, is probably wasting a lot of her time considering how often trolls choose to focus on her in public. But she still tries constantly to be what we think of traditionally as a congressperson as being, going and actually doing casework and listening to people and championing their causes. And they are actively trying to make that impossible to happen, Jessica.
It also goes to show how disconnected Fox News is from the actual issues, because to say she's not talking about crime and instead she's talking about cannabis, when cannabis law reform is absolutely relevant to crimes. How often do you have communities that are over policed and you have people who end up getting arrested because a cop smells marijuana and uses that as an excuse to stop and frisk someone or intervene with what they have going on, and then they can say, well, you're not being compliant now. Now you're resisting arrest, which now is the crime that I'm going to arrest you for, right? But they smell weed and that's the first thing they intervene with. Those cops could actually be addressing, I don't know, serious crimes. We had a serial killer in Kansas City and so many people called in complaining. The victims were black women, the serial killer was white. What do you think the police did? They said, we're not worried about this. I am sure there were arrests for simple possession of marijuana by those police officers that could be investigating more serious crimes. So cannabis reform, if that's what AOC is talking about, is absolutely relevant to crime. So the fact that they don't focus on the issues here just tells you everything you need to know about Fox and why they're talking about, her personality instead.
Yeah, 100%. Look, the goal is, it has nothing to do with her dancing or that town hall or any particular issue. They just want to destroy her and anyone ideologically in any way allied with her. That's it. They know that if they can just stop good progressive candidates from working their way up through the political system, then they're gonna be perfectly fine. They're gonna be perfectly fine, definitely, if Trump or DeSantis or someone like that gets in office. And they're gonna be mostly fine if someone like Kamala Harris or someone like that gets into office, because those sorts of people, whether they have a D or an R next to their name, are not gonna put the corporate tax rate back to where it was just a few years ago. That's just not going to happen. There is only one threat to the issues they actually care about, which is not about what second graders are teaching or drag queen story hour or anything like that. It's about tax rates, it's about business regulation, it's about the big ticket economic issues. It's only people like AOC that are gonna have any chance of posing a threat to the economic dominance of those at the top of the pyramid right now. And so they're gonna do literally anything to destroy them. I am curious though, do you think, like, we don't care about their criticism necessarily. Do you think it was a bad move for her? Was it too dismissive? How would you respond if you were trying to do a follow-on TED Talk as you've done in the past and people were doing that?
Yeah, if I was doing another TED Talk and people were disrupting them, it's like, get out. Like, this isn't for you. Like, if you already aren't gonna participate, I mean, if you wanna show up and ask serious questions about the work she's doing, it's a town hall. You're allowed to participate. But if you're gonna show up and be disruptive, just get out. It's not worth it, not at all.
Yeah.
I would not be down for that. And really what Jesse Waters is doing is distracting from exactly like you said, what are conservatives in Congress doing right now? They're talking about the debt ceiling being a problem and how they need to cut Social Security and Medicare if they get a majority in the next administration. That's extremely unpopular. I'm sure, every voter who watches Fox News would care much more about that issue and cast their ballot differently if they knew that was at stake. But instead, they want to make fun of AOC dancing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, if there was room in their skull for a serious consideration of the future of Medicare or Social Security, that would change how they vote. This entire media infrastructure, all of the Fox News and the OANs and the Newsmaxes and the Ben Shapiro and the various clones of him, all of that is there and funded by the wealthy to just crowd that skull and make it so that there's no room for it because you're so focused on drag queens reading books or QAnon or Dr. Seuss or Keurig boycotts or God knows what, but just anything that's gonna stop them from focusing on their actual economic futures, why they are in such a bad state, why they keep losing ground.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.